What's up guys, welcome back to Smart Like So Spicy. I'm your host and your cook Smarly. If you're new, welcome back to my channel and I hope you like all the recipes I'll be going on here. So today we're making a vegetable stew. It's a Haitian meal. We call it légumes, and it's basically a bunch of vegetables, specific vegetables, but a bunch of them mixed with any meat you'd like: goat, lamb, beef, you name it, and seafood. You can choose any seafood you like, except fish, because I don't think it's a good idea. It's gonna get lost in the stew, but you can choose anything to put in there to give it the taste that you'd like. So me, I'm choosing to use beef today and crab to put in the vegetable stew, and I'll give you all the recipes, all the ingredients I use as vegetables. I got them all written down here because it's a long recipe and you really gotta think, you have to make the time to do this. Honestly, anyway, if you have any questions, text me on my Instagram, Smart Like So Spicy, and if you have any recommendations, leave them on my comments and I'll make sure to read them. So let's get cooking. Alright, so I'll start by telling you all the vegetables that I use and what you will need to cut. So I'm using eggplant, chayote, cabbage, green onions, green beans, pepper, garlic. I use cherry tomatoes, carrots, and cress leaves. So I'll cut all my vegetables and I'll start with the chayote. And this one, it's better if you use gloves while you're cutting it because there's a milk texture in there that gets stuck in your hands and it's almost impossible to get out. So if you have gloves, I would tell you to put gloves before you start cutting this vegetable. Me, I did not, and that's what happened to me. I'm using 4 of them to put in my stew, and I'll put it straight in the pan without having to add anything on the bottom. And the chayote has to be the first thing you put on the bottom because it will give more water out once it starts cooking. So if it's on the bottom, it can still keep the moisture. You won't have to, it will not get stuck on the bottom of the pot. So make sure you put this one first in your pot. And now I'm cutting my eggplants. I'm using 2 of them because they're a good size. And when you're cutting it, you don't have to really be careful. Just make sure you take the little rest of the skin out once you're done. It saves you a lot more time than if you're really trying to get all of it out at once. And my last step will be to just add the cabbage. The cabbage is as much as you feel comfortable with. Me, I'll add all that you see right now. I'll add both sides because I love cabbage in legume, so that's what I'm going to do, but you can add a little bit less if you feel comfortable with it. And also add 1/3 cup of olive oil. You can also use the canola one. That's the one I had, so that's the one I used. You put it on top of the cabbage and just tilt it a little bit so it gets on the bottom, but you don't need oil on the bottom. I tilt it so it doesn't get the cabbage too soggy after. While my vegetables are cooking on medium heat, I'm cutting the rest of my vegetables. I'll not show you everything because it's a boring part, but just check up on your vegetables as you're cutting your carrots and all the other ingredients that I showed you before. So I'm just checking to see if everything's good, and by the sound of it, I could feel like it was a little bit crispy on the bottom, which is good because I want the color to be really brown, but I'm just adding some water. I'm going to use this nice piece of meat because it's less fatty. I will cut it in cubes and put it straight in my pan, and I'll start adding the spices right in there. 2 tablespoons of Haitian spice, about 1 teaspoon of soy sauce, salt and pepper to taste, and I'll also add some sour orange. If you don't want to add soy sauce, it's up to you. I just really like the taste of soy sauce in my meat in general, not just legume. But if you don't feel comfortable with that, it's totally fine. Again, I'm just showing you how I do my part. While the beef is starting to cook, I'll just prepare my crab to add in there. It will take less time to cook, so I can afford to wait a little bit more. So I'll take the crab, I'll wash it, and to wash I will add some sour orange, salt, and some lime slice, so I can kind of wash it in there. I'll just make sure I mix it very well and that the salt got through the crab, and I'll wash it with cold water first, and then I will rinse it with hot water. As you can see, it's already starting to look pink. That means the hot water is cooking it, so you really cannot leave it for too long in there. So I'll just take off the water and I can put it back to put my spices. I will use some Haitian spice, a tablespoon, and I'll use some soy sauce as well. And also I will use fish sauce, but you don't need to do that. Me, I'm using it because the kind of crab that I got was frozen and I know it's not gonna taste as good as I wanted, so I add some fish sauce to remind me of a crab taste. So I also put some chili flakes and some orange juice, and I'll add this right in my meat. The beef was already cooking for like 10 minutes, and I'll leave it for another 10 minutes with the crab. And it's okay if it's not totally cooked because I'll add it in my legumes and it will keep cooking. I will just add my cherry tomatoes now so all the water can get out of it already. The chayote, eggplant, and cabbage cooked for 30 minutes, so it's pretty mushy. I will take my cabbage out because I don't want to blend that, but I will blend my chayote and my eggplant together to make a puree but not too thick. And I will put it back on the stove and cook it for another hour. I cut the rest of the vegetables that I showed you earlier, so I'm going to add them now for the other hour that's going to cook. So I add the peppers, the garlic, the carrots, the cress, and the green beans. I'll just give it a good mix so all my vegetables get lost together, and I'll put it on the stove. I'm just checking on the beef one last time because I'm going to switch it. I'll put it in my vegetables, and I like the fact that there's already a stock in there because it's gonna give a great taste to the vegetables. I forgot to tell you guys earlier, and I'm sorry about that, but I also put some thyme and parsley in my beef, and I took it off just before I put in the vegetables too because I don't want it to get all lost in there. So you could put some thyme and parsley when you're cooking your beef, not in the vegetables too, just the meat. Alright, we've done the hardest part, so now we'll get to the easy part. I'm just adding a chicken broth cube because I want it to have a little bit more taste, and you can do that as you go because right now it's gonna cook for about another hour. I will keep stirring it all the time. Every 10 minutes I'll come check on it and stir it, and I'll show you how it looks every time I come back to stir it. So the bottom of it gets a really dark color, and that I can get that flavor of in my legume. That's when you're gonna smell it, and that's when you'll know it really smells like legume. I'll also add a little bit of olive oil because I don't want it to be too dry taste, even though there's water in there. But I'll keep stirring it and I'll show you every time. So this is my second time stirring it, and it looks a little bit better already. And I'm also adding 1 hot pepper because Smurry likes it spicy, just so I can have a little bit of a heat flavor. So in this, I'm looking for heat, acidity, salt, and a little bit of sweetness. The sweetness will come from the chayote, so I will not add any sugar in there. But that's the 4 taste that I'm basically looking for. So it's been about 30 minutes already and it's looking a lot better. It's losing the water, which is what I want, and I'm seeing a puree texture a lot more now. This is a common mistake, to not let all the water come out of the vegetable stew, but this is what makes it taste like what you usually taste. It's to leave it as much as possible so you get as much water out as possible, which is why I did not cover it, because I want all the water to get out on its own. So this is the result. I really hope you guys like this recipe because I absolutely loved it and it came out really good. To tell you that it's my first time making it by myself, this was a really big accomplishment. In my description below, I will put all the ingredients that I use for this recipe, as well as all the spices and the measurement of the spices. So if you guys want to try this recipe, let me know what you made out of it and if you liked it. Also, if you like this video, please put a thumbs up and share my videos and subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you next time for another amazing video. Take care.